everyone, and welcome to what is this now? Episode 6 of Between the Grooves, the final collection. So, this episode, I'm going to pick some vinyls from 1981, and it was kind of serendipitous because I was looking through what albums came out in 1981, and I was absolutely delighted that this first album was in my list, and obviously delighted that it's in my collection, because at the weekend I went to see the mighty Iron Maiden at London Stadium with my son Sam and my mates Brian, Sandra, and other Sam, and I've seen Maiden a number of times. I was trying to work out, I think it's maybe 17 times, something like that, 16, 17 times. Maybe some times I've forgotten about. Maybe the beer was flowing and I've forgotten I'd seen them. But I have to say that this particular show, the Legacy Tour, probably the best I've ever seen them. Absolutely incredible performances. The set was just banger after banger, and the staging and the lighting and imagery was just incredible, and they were really on form. Especially Bruce's voice, actually, he was absolutely on fire. So the first one that comes up isn't the Iron Maiden's debut album. It's actually their second album, and the album is simply titled Killers. And there we have him. We have Eddie on the front again. You know, Iron Maiden's mascot, iconic Eddie, that appears on the front of every Iron Maiden album in various guises over the years, and I'm sure some more Iron Maiden albums will come up as we go through. So this is the second album by Iron Maiden, and it's the first with Adrian Smith on guitar, who joined Dave Murray, and Adrian has a bar one or two albums, might be one. He's been a stalwart of Iron Maiden, incredible guitarist, really imaginative guitarist, and also this was the first album with Adrian, but the last album with the original singer Paul Di'Anno. Iron Maiden had decided to part ways with Paul. I think there were problems with some of his performances. I think there was obviously drink involved, maybe drugs. I'm not sure. Don't want to be don't want to step out of line there. But it was affecting his voice, affecting his performance, and affecting his commitment, I think. And so they were scouting around for another singer. Obviously, eventually, quite quickly, actually settled on Bruce, who, again, despite a small absence, has been with Iron Maiden ever since. But we cannot diminish the impact of Paul Di'Anno. I really, really, really like Paul Di'Anno's voice on these albums. I dare say, made controversially, sometimes Bruce's voice can, though it's an incredible voice, it's an incredibly powerful voice, it tends to lack sometimes light and shade for me, which Paul's voice did. There are songs on here that verge on ballads, really. Songs like Prodigal Son, for example, Instant Exile. There's a real groove to these songs as well. And as I say, I really love Paul's voice. And I have to say, if I was going to do a top, 10 list or what have you, or top or rank Iron Maiden albums, this would be right at near the top. It would probably even be number 2 in the entire collection. I absolutely, I'll probably listen to this album, apart from some others, some absolute classics like Number of the Beast, Peace of Mind, and later albums like Brave New World and A Matter of Life or Death, which I just think are incredibly incredible albums. This one is constantly on place. I had it on cassette first, and I had a paper round, I used to put the cassette on, and I used to cycle off on my paper round. So I listened to this quite a bit, and got to know, all the words and what have you. Um, I don't think it was my introduction to Iron Maiden, because I think the first Iron Maiden album I bought was probably Number of the Beast, because we'd had Run to the Hills had come out, and obviously Number of the Beast had come out, etc. But it is the one I go back to the most. As I say, just there's even sort of small sort of instrumental sections here, like Ides of March. And interestingly, on the show I just saw them do, they did Rothschild from this album, and Murders in the Rue Morgue from this album. So they are still incredibly popular songs from the fans' point of view. So yeah, as I say, it's got a groove, got almost like a funk to it. Obviously, it's a heavy album. Incredible vocals. I absolutely love Iron Maiden Killers. I love it so much that I've got the sort of the standard copy there, and I also bought myself, because the imagery and the iconography that goes with Iron Maiden is and the merchandising is second to none, really. And I got this one as well. This is a nice glossy fold out sort of picture of the band back in the early days, as it were. Same back cover, etc. But it's got it had some sort of little slip there, but it's got a little bit more imagery in here. Got the words to the songs, obviously. Lovely, mean and moody pic of the guys. Paul, obviously at the front there, and obviously founding member Steve Harris there. And it's also lovely. Look at that. It's a picture disc, and I believe these are images from some of the early singles. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong there. So this had Steve Harris obviously on bass, Clive Burr on drums, who eventually had to leave because of his illness after Number of the Beast. Paul Di'Anno, last one that Paul did on vocals, and sadly Paul passed away very, very recently. So great loss there. And Dave Murray on guitar, and Adrian Smith on guitar as well. So Killers, absolutely love it. If I was going to introduce anybody to Iron Maiden, I probably would start with Peace of Mind or Number of the Beast, but that would be in the list of possible. It was also produced by Martin Britt, who actually produced the next 8, so he produced 9 of Iron Maiden's albums. So a little bit of a departure now, a bit of a change up here. So I talked about this band last episode. This is obviously The Police, and this is their 4th album. Came out in obviously 1981. This is I think a much moodier album. I think they were going, for singles and chart success on the first or 3 albums. And Sundiata Mandata is great. We've got some great singles on there. But this is a much moodier, more ominous, almost futuristic, dystopian kind of sounding album. It's got a dark cover. It's got dark themes in it. So Spirits in a Material World is a really sort of mood song, as it were, and in An Invisible Sun, which I think was Invisible Sun released as a single, I think it was. But sort of sandwiched between that, you've got Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic, which has this lovely sort of Caribbean uplifting kind of sound to it, really kind of positive poppy tune, and then it settles back into Hunger for You, Demolition Man, which is upbeat again, but again kind of a dark sort of theme to it, and Too Much Information, One World Not Enough, Omega Man. Darker, moodier album. I think their best. I think it is their best album. It's certainly the one that I listen to the most. The drumming on it and the sound on it, the tightness of the band is fantastic. And I love this album so much that I actually had this It was actually pinned on my wall. I had a few sort of covers pinned on my wall in my teenage bedroom, and this was one of them. Ghost in the Machine by The Police. Check it out. Fantastic album. Now, the next album. Now, I debated whether to talk about this album, and because of this year, I'm going to. But I wonder if you're watching, these videos. We're not supposed to be in chronological order, but I haven't sort of talked about what came before this album. I am unashamedly a massive fan of Meat Loaf. Meat Loaf sort of changed my musical landscape for me, my musical direction. I was listening to a lot of pop. I was listening to great stuff. I was very heavily into ABC, and obviously I was into ska stuff like Madness and what have you. And a friend of mine lent me a tape of Wham's first album, Wham Fantastic. Yes, it is true. I was a Wham fan, and on the B side was Bat of Hell by Meat Loaf, and I thought, I'll listen to it, And as I say in my book, still available on Amazon, Between the Grooves, an audiobiography. I'll put the link in the comments. I say, I pressed the play button and my world exploded, and it did. There was this huge sound. It was dramatic. It was intense. It was huge. It was powerful, and it was just absolutely blew me away. It always reminds me. Those of you that might may remember the TDK adverts. There was an advert for, or was it? No, it wasn't. It was Maxwell. Sorry, Maxwell cassettes, and there was a guy sitting in an armchair like this, and he's listening, and he presses play, and he kind of gets blown, and his hair gets blown back, and it's, especially with this powerful sound coming out, and that's the imagery I have in my head when I turn that album. Anyway, I will talk about that album, probably in a lot of detail when I get to that year. I think there's some interesting things to say. A lot has been said about that album, but the story is that Meat Loaf toured so hard. And there was alcohol and drug abuse involved, and he basically completely screwed his voice. So the record company were pushing for a new the next album. Now, you may not know, but all the songs on Bat of Hell were written by Jim Steinman, and Jim Steinman was kind of a musical theatre producer and songwriter, and that's where he met Meat Loaf. Meat Loaf was cast in Steinman's play More Than You Deserve, and he absolutely loved Meat Loaf's voice, and Meat Loaf's obviously appeared in Rocky Horror Picture Show as well, playing Eddie. And as I say, Meat Loaf had lost his voice, and Steinman thought, well, he'd written this album and started to record it as a follow-up to Bat of Hell, and it was originally entitled Renegade Angel. But because Meat Loaf had kind of suffered this vocal loss, Steinman basically recorded the album, renamed it Bad for Good, and decided, somewhat controversially, to do the vocal himself. And Steinman, he can hold a tune, but he's not Meat Loaf, right? His voice is, much more fragile. It's certainly not as powerful and as dynamic and as warm as Meat Loaf's voice. But he decided to sort of purge ahead and do this album anyway. So I haven't held it up. Jim Steinman's Bad for Good. And now again, another cover, very sort of reminiscent, sort of this sort of art fantasy cover. That was prominent on Bat of Hell, and there's a picture of Steinman looking mean and moody in the background. As I say, he recorded it with his vocal, and I think at the time there was a review that said that Steinman simply doesn't have the vocal range or lung power necessary to make this dramatic style of rock work. And he says that especially the song Left in the Dark. I didn't make a note of who actually said this, actually, so I apologise for that. But it explicitly says that Left in the Dark, he struggles to keep up with vocal demands this orchestral ballad demands, resulting in a vocal that sounds strained and occasionally off key. I kind of disagree. I like it. I like this album. Most of the tracks on this album were eventually re-recorded by Meatloaf, and it took on that dramatic effect, that dramatic sound that Meatloaf, the theatre that Meatloaf created. But especially on the song "Left in the Dark," Steinman brings a fragility to the song that I think suits the song, dare I say, better than Meatloaf's voice did. Left in the Dark was actually covered by Barbara Streisand as well, if you can kind of believe that, and go and see if you can find that on Spotify, right? Other streaming services are available, I believe. But I really like this album. It's a really fun album. Again, it's dramatic. But if you're a Meatloaf fan, you will recognise songs from this. Lost Boys and Golden Girls is on here. Surf's Up is on here, and I have to say I do like Meatloaf's version of Surf's Up, which I believe appeared on Bad Attitude, which I know is one of Kate's favourite songs. And Left in the Dark at the end. And Left in the Dark is this beautiful song about, a guy waiting for his partner, wife, whoever, to basically come home one night. And, he's gone to bed and the hours are sort of ticking away, and he's figured, well, he's had these suspicions, and he believes that maybe she's been with someone else, and it's this it's a really lovely idea that he's basically he kind of accuses her. It's where have you been? It's this time in the morning. You said you're going to be home at this time. What's going on? And then he basically says, but actually don't tell me because I want to be left in the dark. Left in the dark again, being that it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, I go on too much, but it's I really like this album. I know it divides people, but I think it's a great album. If you are a Meatloaf fan, it's certainly worth checking out. It will take a little while for your ear to go, oh, right, okay, it's not Meatloaf singing, because certainly the songs lend itself to that. It also came with a little single called "The Storm," which I don't know if I've got in this copy. Which is "The Storm" and "Rock and Roll Dreams Come Through," which of course was again a single by me. Oh my God, it's not in here. I must have lost that along the way somewhere. I think these are more collectible. It has the single in it. "The Storm" was an instrumental, and yeah, check it out. Love that. Love little story behind that. I'm not quite sure why, and I'll explain in a moment. I'm not quite sure why Steinman didn't wait a bit longer for Meatloaf to perform it, but he didn't, and this is what we have, and I think there's some real merit to it. Okay, so when I was, I don't know, how was I, 1981, maybe a bit later than that, I went to a outdoor pursuit activity weekend with school. You had the choice. You could go skiing or you could go to the Lake District. So basically, if your parents had money, you could go skiing. If they didn't, you went to the Lake District. I speak a lot about the division in school when they streamed kids into A streams and B streaming, and it seemed there was a correlation that most of the A streamers went skiing, and if you were in the B stream, the B class, the B movies, you went to the Lake District. But I actually think I lucked out because I really had a great time. I've got lots of stories, and I talk about some of those in the book about that week in the mountains. Went gorge walking and night camping and rock climbing and abseiling and stuff. It's great. And now I had known of this band. You couldn't have been around in that period without knowing about this, but I didn't really know this band. And I had a mate who was a bit of a naughty character. He's always in trouble, and I kind of knew that if I hung out with him, I'd probably get into trouble, but I kind of didn't care, and it turned out to be the case. And he had this album, and I'd seen loads of kids, especially slightly older kids, walking around school with this album under their arms. And one of those guys was actually my not teacher in the school, but a guy called Nigel. We used to basically taught all the musicians I know in Reading. This guy taught them. He was a multi-instrumentalist, really talented guy, and he had this as well. He was also a massive Genesis fan, but this wasn't Genesis. This is Queen. Queen's greatest hits. Now I laugh, and I know Kate will laugh when she hears this. You know, there's an Alan Partridge line, isn't there, when a guy asks him, "I didn't know you were into the Beatles," and he says, "Oh, you know, yeah." He said, "Well, what's your favourite Beatles album?" And Alan Partridge goes, "It'll have to be the best of the Beatles." And it's kind of a joke, but to show that he probably wasn't that deep a Beatles fan. But I am a big Queen fan. I adored the vast majority of what Queen did. I especially like their really early career. Queen, their debut album was one of my favourite albums. You can just about see it up on the wall there. But this is the Great Hits, and this is really my in to Queen. I hadn't really heard a lot of these songs before. Maybe in passing I hadn't. I knew of Bohemian Rhapsody, but I don't think I'd ever actually sat down and listened to it. And when I did, when I got this album, well, you know, what is going on here? Starts, oh, it's a ballad. Oh, well, what's happening? We've now gone opera. Oh, now it's a rocker. Just what a fantastic, I mean, just a seminal, groundbreaking song. And, you know, much has been said about it. But this sort of spanned their career up to sort of midway. It goes up to We Are the Champions, We Will Rock You, Don't Stop Me Now, that kind of period. But it obviously has another one, Bites the Dust, Killer Queen, Fat Bottom Girls, Bicycle Race, You're My Best Friend, Don't Stop Me Now, Save Me, Crazy Little Finger Lloyd, Somebody to Love, Now I'm Here, Old Fashioned Lover Boy, Play the Game, Flash from the movie, Seven Seas of Rye, the full version, We Will Rock You, and We Are the Champions. A few years ago, I was very lucky to add backing vocals to a live show featuring the fantastic 80s cover band in East Sussex known as Iron Tiger. Hi guys. And they performed with orchestra, and they performed a Queen set, and I was very lucky to do the backing vocals for it. And I pretty much think that is the set list. You know, it's all the absolute classics. I remember staring at this album, just thinking, who are these sort of dudes as well? And what I really liked about it is it showed me the albums and the tracks that were taken from the album. Interesting, Seven Seas of Rye is technically on the first album as well, because the album ends with the first sort of few bars of Seven Seas of Rye. But actually the full version appeared on... pointing to the wrong one, appeared on Queen 2. You know, Queen were just, never saw them live. You know, look at the Live Aid performance, look at the Live at Rainbow, look at the back catalogue. Freddie, you know, the lead singer, Freddie Mercury, one of the greatest rock vocalists of all time, and frontmen of all time. I was slightly obsessed with Queen for a number of years, as was my brother Paul. Got, you know, obviously own all the albums, and I have my favourite songs. But it all started with a greatest hits album. I think they went on to make 3 or 4 greatest hits, all imaginatively called the greatest hits 2, greatest hits 3, etc. And obviously, sadly, Freddie died many years ago now, a number of years ago, of HIV AIDS. So very sad for the music industry, but what a legacy he left behind. So anyway, Queen, greatest hits. Now back to Bad for Good, back to Jim Steinman's Bad for Good. So as I say, 1981, Jim Steinman decides he's not going to wait around for Meat Loaf, and he's going to record the new album himself, most of the same band that came from Bat Hell, with himself laying down the vocal. And I don't know whether he had a crisis of guilt or something. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't believe he was that kind of guy. He kind of seemed to be kind of one-track minded, really. So what he did instead is he wrote an entirely new album for Meat Loaf. But this is the odd thing. It came out the same year. Now, I don't know what's going on there. If Steinman couldn't wait around for Meat Loaf recorded and released his... It's not technically his second album. He had an album earlier called Meat Loaf and Stoney, which is a much earlier album. But as the unit that we think of as being Meat Loaf, this is his second album. And it was written by Jim Steinman, and it was released in the same year as Bad for Good. Another wow, kind of sort of fantasy novel kind of cover, very dramatic cover that Meat quite often had. I used to love that background image, just showing that the sweating Beamoff that was that Beamoff in voice as well as size. Everything big comes out of Texas, right? I really like this album. It didn't get as much critical acclaim as the first album, Better Hell. It's not considered to be the classic that Better Hell is, but I really like it, and I think there's some really undiscovered, underrated gems on this album. First of all, it has Dead Ringer for Love that featured Cher. Now that is a great rock and roll song, and it was a big hit. So again, quite why it didn't get the acclaim that it should have, I don't know. But it's also got Read 'Em and Weep, and I think Read 'Em and Weep is one of Steinman / Meatloaf's best ballads. I mean, Meatloaf could really sell a ballad, right? And I think Read 'Em and Weep is one of his best. Again, very dramatic song with references to sort of theatre and what have you as well. A little story for you. Don't know if I've mentioned this in my book, but when a number of my friends were in sixth form, I left school by that point. Were in sixth form. They held a silence, like a 5-minute silence, because Read 'Em and Weep had been covered and released by Barry Manilow, and they were horrified by this, so they kind of held this kind of, that was a protest or something, but they held this sort of 5-minute silence in reverence to Meatloaf's version of Read 'Em and Weep. It also has Everything Is Permitted, which I think is it's an absolutely genius song, beautiful lyric. I remember trying to emulate the lyrics of that song in my early sort of writing, but early songwriting, and certainly didn't achieve that. It's also got I'm Gonna Love Her for the Both of Us, and I Kill You If You Don't Come Back. Again, just typical tongue-in-cheek humour, typical theatrical sort of presentation that Steinman always went for. I think the only thing I would say is I generally skip the first song, Peel Out, and I don't think, I would agree that I don't think Meat's voice is as good on this as it was on Better Hell. He was still recovering, he was still trying to get it back, but he never really reached that again. He never really achieved what he achieved on that first album, but he came damn close, and this is one of them. So Steinman didn't write for Meatloaf then for a number of years, and Meatloaf went off and had different writers and what have you, and with varying success. And obviously then Steinman and Meatloaf reformed to do the Better Hell 2, which was an absolute huge beam-off of a hit, containing one of the longest songs that Steinman ever wrote. So I think that's an interesting point, really, about I think it's an interesting album. I think it's an interesting story behind it, and still you sort of scratch my head as to why Steinman didn't wait around for Meatloaf when they released an album together in the same year as Bad for Good. But I really like Dead Ringer. I think it's got some as I said, some unsung gems in it. So I've talked about my book a lot on this one, but there is a story again which I talk about. When I joined the first rock band I joined, Loose Tourniquet, I'd gone along to rehearsal. I'd said this in an earlier episode. So I'd gone along to rehearsal, and I said, what we're going to do, and we came up with some tunes, and there was some Sex Pistols in there, and I think some Van Halen and what have you. And the guy said, we're going to do this song by Rush. And I'm like, oh yeah, I love Rush. Oh yeah, we all love Rush too. Yeah, chat. Left the rehearsal, and I had to go out and buy a Rush album because I had no idea who Rush were. I just didn't want to be, I wanted to act cool in front of these guys who I considered to be much cooler than me, even though they were younger than me. But that just that's me all over, really. My insecurities coming out. So I actually went out and I bought, as I said, Exit Stage Left, and the song that I needed to learn wasn't actually on that album either. So I went out and tried to find another Rush album. The only one I could find was this one. But I'm so pleased because it is in probably my top 3 favourite Rush albums. I'm a huge Rush fan. This is Moving Pictures by Rush, which is their 8th studio album. One of the interesting things about this album cover, I think, which I think is often lost on a lot of people. I certainly was lost on me for a number of years. So the album is called Moving Pictures, and if you can see on the front, there are these guys in these overalls who are moving pictures, and then these people are mourning, so they're obviously crying. So obviously the pictures are moving them. So again, they are moving pictures, and on the back is a film set filming the scene moving pictures. So I think it's like a triple entendre or something. I don't know what you would call that. But anyway, so Rush had gone for a sort of a more a tighter, shorter songs, trying to get maybe a bit more commercially friendly or more radio friendly. This is Rush's highest selling album to date. I think it surpassed 2112, which was their kind of breakout album. And it's really the one, as I said, that really cemented me as a Rush fan. It has Tom Sawyer. Any drummer will probably tell you. Any drummer would tell you that is a B of a drum a drum line to play. Even Pete was like, "Why did I write this?" You know, it's notoriously difficult to nail. Great song though. Tom Sawyer is one of the best known songs. Red Barchetta, again, the lyrics obviously written by Neil Peart, who was the drummer. Obviously, if you don't know, sorry. Red Barchetta was inspired by a novel, I believe, and it's kind of the story of illegal car racing. YYZ, which is an instrumental, which I think appeared on, my sons will correct me on this, which I believe appeared on, is it called Rock Guitar on the PlayStation, where you get this plastic guitar and you're supposed to sort of play. It's a bit like Simon Says. Everyone remembers that game where you have to hit the light up buttons. It's basically what it was, and I believe YYZ appeared on that. So a lot of young kids went, "Wow, what is this?" And I think certainly my oldest son Jan, it was probably his first real introduction into Rush. And it also has Limelight on this, which is one of my favourite tracks, one of my favourite songs by Rush. It's really about Neil Peart's sort of uncomfortableness, really, with his fame and with, you know, fans and what have you. He basically saying, look, you know, I'm an artist, I'm a musician. It doesn't necessarily follow that I want to be, you know, sort of adored in that way. I can't pretend this stranger is a long-awaited friend, you know. Rush, fantastic. Rush, Moving Pictures. So I'm just going to finish off here with my off-the-wall choice here. This is the 11th studio album from this artist. You wouldn't believe that she did that many albums. It's ranked among one of the top-selling or best-selling albums by an Australian solo artist. And it sold more than 10 million copies worldwide. When I was much younger, when I was a young kid, this lady was my first crush because she played Sandy in Grease. So this is Physical by Olivia Newton-John, and you know, again, this album cover was on my. It kind of folds out, so you get more of her. So this was this was on the wall in my bedroom. I really like this album. You know, people can sort of criticize her, you know, and kind of middle of the road, kind of easy listening kind of stuff. But this actually caused some controversy because a lot of the lyrics, especially on the title track, Physical, were kind of sexual innuendos and sexual references. And, you know, the video was quite steamy as well. And I think the song had to be edited for certain radio stations. And I know MTV had to sort of edit part of the video. So, you know, Olivia Newton-John, controversial. You know, who would have known? But it's some really great tracks on here. I've got the wrong glasses on, so I can't see too well. But Landslide, which was released as a single, was really quite a dark song, but fantastic. Make a Move on Me was a big hit as well. Falling is a lovely song, and it's obviously got Physical on here as well. Recovery, beautiful song. You know, kind of song that you might expect sort of Stevie Nicks to have released. And The Promise, which is kind of a Promise the Dolphin song, which is kind of a song about. Oh, there she's on a dolphin. Look, there you go. Which song is sort of an environmental song, but I just thought I'd throw that one in. It's worth a listen. I really like it. Olivia Newton-John. I don't really know much more by her apart from the Grease soundtrack, obviously. But yes, she gave me warm, fuzzy feelings when I was a young kid, and I loved the song "Physical" when it came up. It was a great song. So check it out. Okay, thank you very much for your time again. Thank you very much for tuning in. I will catch you next time. As always, please subscribe. Check out the book as well on Amazon, Between the Grooves, an autobiography. And I will catch you next time. So until then, be good, be kind, be truthful, and be free.